All right, we are live. Everyone, I am joined today by someone who it's strange, someone who seems like an old friend. Although we've never met in person and we've only known each other for maybe 2 years. I don't even know how long it's gone back. But joined by Gigi. How are you doing today? Glad you could join us.
I'm actually doing really great. I got tons of sleep. I feel amazing. It's summer break for me. So I'm feeling really good today and really rested and creative and just ready to seize the day. So that's how I'm feeling today, genuinely and truly. Yeah.
It's always good when you can give a genuine "I'm feeling great" answer to that question.
Exactly.
A lot of times we lie. A lot of times we're like, "Oh yeah, things are right as rain," and you're just burning on the inside. It's just
I'm trying to be more honest with how I'm actually feeling sometimes.
Really
or whatever, and and people see that as complaining. I'm just like, I don't know why. Why
asked me.
Lie. I don't know.
Yeah, if you didn't want to know, you shouldn't have asked. That's kind of I
have a lot of creative energy today, so I think I'll probably do. Who knows? When I get in my creative sort of ways, who knows where it's going to lead me? Whether it be painting something or doing some social media post or I don't know, procreate or whatever. So we'll just see where the day brings us. But I think that's a good thing about having a summer off because I'm a teacher. So having time and space to be able to have creative outlets and creative flows, it's really nice. And I wish more people had it, but that's a separate topic.
It fits into one of our questions. I find it kind of amazing that creative people ever get anything done, honestly, just with how creative minds work, that it's always distracted in something else. Or I consider myself somewhat creative, at least. And my issue is it's hard to do something that I'm not feeling in the moment. And if I'm not jazzed about this, if I'm not excited about it, and even if it's a really good idea, it's like, yeah, I'll do it later. And then I forget all about it and it just evaporates. It's gone. I imagine that's got to be pretty common. So I respect the discipline of people who do it, whether they want to or not.
That's the thing. I've had a lot of creative outlets and I've grown certain platforms and it started as a creative thing. And then at a certain point, I feel backed into some corner or something. And it's probably just my own mental block. I'm trying to learn that I can basically just do whatever I want and it's okay. And it doesn't have to be looped into one thing, because I'll get I just been talking about this one thing for so long. And now I feel like I built this thing on this topic. And now I have to keep what do I do now? Because people are expecting this, And so I've restarted a lot of things for that reason. Because I just feel backed into a creative, restrictive place because of it.
Yeah, that does suck when that happens. It's why I feel really badly for someone who's a content creator and they go viral for a joke and they have to keep doing the same joke over. I don't remember that guy who would do those jokes where he's working at a department store and they're like, I want to see your manager. Is like, I'm the manager. That dramatic music would play in the background. He did 80 videos like that with different topics. I was like, that had to get real old real quick. And he was a comedian, or is, I guess. And I remember seeing a clip of him. He was using the background sound in his show. I was like, God, that's got us. He just hate every second of that. So yeah, it's but it's a feast or famine thing. At least you have that. Most people don't have anything like that at all.
Yeah, and I've learned that the people that fuck with you just fuck with you, no matter what. There's people when I was doing reselling, I would do videos of me at thrift stores finding items and stuff like that, or whatever. And I had people that were there for that content, but also just people who are I just like this person. And so those people have followed me everywhere I have went. Then my faith started falling apart. So I had a whole other platform. I really wanted to talk about that for a solid couple years. So the people who fucked with me back in reselling, they still fucked with me with this. And now, even after I sort of have backed away from it a bit because it's like I've said a lot of the things I needed to say, and there's a lot of other factors that go into that, like having a super public job and like people like finding me on social media. Like one thing could go viral and then it would have all these implications, and that's actually happened a couple times in real life, you know, like that. So it makes me really like question like what exactly I'm saying on social media, how I'm saying it, how it's being perceived, like that. And it gets like it gets anxiety filled a bit, like when you're talking about like serious subjects on the internet. So
yeah, no getting out of that. It is interesting where you're talking about how it's true. See, like, some people just have the vibe and they click and they'll listen to you talk about anything because they just find the way you present information to be interesting, just something about you. And you ever watch Mad Men? I've been talking about Mad Men a lot lately because
Mad Men.
It was a show.
Hold on, what? Let me just like Mad. I think I have, but
it takes place in the 60s. Don Draper is an ad executive.
I've heard of it and I've seen it like peripherally like referenced.
Mm-hmm. So I remember the show came out like 15 years ago or something. It's like an old show, maybe not 15, maybe 10 or so. But I remember it looked really cool, and they had I remember seeing the commercial before the show came out, and it showed clips from Mad Men, and they were playing Amy Winehouse's song "You Know That I'm No Good," which is a fucking banger. If you guys haven't heard that song, it's so great. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And so then I remember the show came out and it showed the opening sequence and they didn't have that song in there. I was really sad. I was like, oh, it was a perfect, the song they picked sucked. But anyway, with Mad Men, I remember a line in there when Don Draper is talking to his boss, Roger Sterling. No, they're talking to a younger executive who's coming up, and he's a prick. He's a total asshole, and he's an awful human being. And they're trying to tell him, listen, I know you're cocky because you're working here in Madison or, in Manhattan, and you're making all this money at 26 years old. You think the world's, your oyster and everything, but you're not going to last long in this business because when it comes down to it, most of business interactions can be boiled down to, I don't like that guy. And it's done. It's over. And he said, you have, and life is like that. Life is like that in a lot of ways. And if you are fortunate enough to be blessed with charisma, as we are, you can skate by a lot just on that. And, you add in some humor and some good social skills and stuff. And it's not fair. It is not fair because it's like,
we're fickle as fuck. We are.
Yeah, right. It's like, you didn't choose this. This is just how your brain works. And that's just how it is. But oh man, God, I swear I'll get to the question soon enough. But this topic just but so I've noticed a thing on social media with people whom I follow or interested in that a lot of them have autism. And I swear I'm not trying to sound like a boomer here. I'm not. I don't understand the term autism. Like I never have.
Because I get it.
Oh my God! Thank you. So okay, go. You please. Yeah, I have so much to say on this because I have a hard time saying it because like you're saying, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just like at all that I know it does. It's just hard to explain.
So hard to grasp and like be like that's definitely autism, or like it doesn't have one face or one way that it presents itself. That it's like that's clearly that. And so, I mean, there are certain things like in young children, like I have an autistic daughter, like a very characteristic of autism is like lining up your toys and having like very rigid like opinions, like this is the way it is. And this is how you say it and what you say. Like with my daughter, for example, like if we say, oh, that's this, well, there's like a certain, like one word has many different ways you can say this one thing. Like I can't even give you an example off the top of my head. Like, oh, that was really great. And she'd be like, oh, that was good, not great. Like you have to say this one. That's how it goes. And like, no, like there are many different words that mean good, fantastic, great, etc. But she gets it's in this inflexible state of mind where it's like, and and it's so like you could have a couple of autistic traits, but a couple like, but not like you could understand, like plenty of autistic people understand sarcasm, like 'cause that's the whole thing of like autistic people don't understand sarcasm, and but actually like a lot of autistic people do.
Yeah.
And so it's like you could have a couple autistic traits and then a couple like of neurotypical, whatever you want to call it, and it's they say it's a spectrum, but it's really just like I don't even know how to explain it. You know,
Yeah, it's like an ocean. It's like you're somewhere on this, like it's wide and deep. It turns out, as it is, and it's a Bible song, deep and wide, but or a church song. But what got me with it was the same thing, because so I remember that when autism first was starting to become more known in the public zeitgeist, whatever, I want to say the 90s. I want to say that's when it started happening. I remember there was a quarterback, Doug Flutie, and he had an autistic son. And I remember he would talk about him a lot. And that was like the first time it came to mind. I think I was a teenager back then. And so from what I understood is kind of what you said. I knew the basic traits there, that someone who was autistic had a difficult time reading social cues. They wouldn't understand why, like you said with words, like let's say you call someone calls me a wise man or something like that, and I'm like, all right, but if someone calls me a wise guy, that's a problem. Now you're insulting me. It's like, okay, well, what's up with that? Yeah, stuff like that. And and like stacking blocks. Oh, the blue blocks go here and the green blocks go here. Yeah, so that was my understanding of autism. And then I would see these news reports, and the news report started coming out. It's like, so we have the first autistic person to graduate as valedictorian. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then I said, first autistic person to be admitted into an Ivy League college. And I kept seeing this stuff more and more. I was like, okay, wait a minute here. Okay, at this point, what does this mean now? Because whenever my thought was still like what you were saying, like the base level, what you assume, like the kid who can't talk to anyone, is reserved in the corner. And like I viewed it as a mental deficiency. I guess I'm trying to say that's how I saw it. And then as time's gone on, no, that's not what it means at all. It's just that you process information in a different way, but in a myriad of ways that it can be demonstrated 1,000 ways. So what I'm trying to say, without sounding like boomerish, is I don't know what the word means anymore. Like, I genuinely don't. Like, it means 1,000 things. And to me, I'm like, okay, well, we should get more words. That's just how I see it.
I agree. I agree. I think that there are different facets of it, and it's such a catch-all term. Like ADHD, for example, like is pretty straightforward. Like to me, like thinking about the different characteristics of ADHD, it's and that I could see being on a spectrum of like really. Like, and that makes sense to me. But autism has so many different traits, and it presents itself differently for so many people. And like, I think it's really like, I don't know, because anybody could sort of.
Yes. Oh God, I'm so glad that we're simpatico. I feel it's risky saying this because I can see how people would take it the wrong way, that I'm like an autism denier. It's like, no, I'm having a hard time justifying the usefulness of the word if it means a million different things. And so and you know what, to be fair, I'm not an expert on this. There probably are like dozens of different words for this, but the catch-all term, I don't know. It's just like the efficacy kind of. But anyway, let's move on to actual stuff we're talking about here. So
I can talk about that forever.
I know, right? So I brought you on to go over a lot of stuff about growing up as an independent fundamental Baptist, or actually, I don't know if you're a Baptist or not, but growing up evangelical Christian and the wild world that encompasses. But before I hopped on, I went to your Instagram and I saw you posted a story. I can't remember the guy's name, but some congressman, Juan something. I don't remember his last name, but the guy in the video was saying a line that I had to write down here, where he said that MAGA politicians put in a lot of work to pretend that they're not insane. That's of course true for MAGA politicians and everything. But it's equally true for the adherents of, evangelical Christian extremism. And have you noticed that? Because I picked up on that later than I'd like to admit, because I just thought these people were just, living their lives, because a lot of them are the opposite. Like, they try to be weird, but when they get into work or higher positions or whatever, they know they got to dial that down, and the hypocrisy kind of bugged me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's really like a mask that people put on to like be accepted into like what we've deemed like normal in society. Like you have like the corporate man who's going to his job and taking care of his wife, and like there's so much that goes into just that. But then like a lot of these people like behind closed doors do the craziest suppressed shit that you've ever seen in your life. Like they just fit down to the point where it festers and gets even weirder than if you just like explored it without shame and fear. Like you see that a lot, and a lot of phobias, and the phobias make it weird. Like,
and it turns them. So I don't know if you guys heard about this, but last week someone shot at Donald Trump. I don't know if you guys heard the news on that, but there was a guy who got shot. 3 people got shot, and one of them died, and a lot of people were saying he was a firefighter. Apparently, he was shielding his family and everything. And then people, of course, when he died, they went and dug up his tweets and his social media and everything. And like, folks, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. It was a surprise. But his last tweet was to Cat Turd. I don't know what Cat Turd is, but he's an infamous right-wing like extremist or whatever, like a Tucker Carlson type who's only on Twitter. So like Tucker Carlson, but more pathetic. And there was a tweet where someone showed a picture of Gaza, and it was like leveled to the ground, and there were all these people, scooping up their belongings and dead people everywhere. And someone was like, the tweet says something like, 300 children are dead in the city in Gaza. And the guy who got shot commented, they'll get over it. The Japanese did. Like, all right. And so I know, right? But, not super surprising from a Trump supporter and everything. But John and I were talking about this, and what's strange about these folks, I don't know if this guy was an independent fundamental Christian or whatever, but it's the same mold where some of the weird thing about this is that was a brutally inhumane thing to say, like genuinely monstrous. But I guarantee if you just knew this guy at work or you just saw him in the street, he'd be a normal fucking person. You would have no fucking clue how fucked up he was. And that's it. It's perfect. That's exactly how they navigate the world. I don't know how they do it.
You know what it is it's this idea, this phrase that goes around all the time that says that we shouldn't talk about religion or politics. And so that shit right there, if we can't have conversations about it, then we can't question it. We can't talk about it in public. We can't push back on other people's political, religious beliefs. Like, and it becomes the fucking craziness that it is because we're not allowed to talk about it in public in polite society. We're like someone at your job, you're there because you fucking have to be, and you have to make money, and you have to put on like kind of like a facade, whether we like to view it that way or not. We have to like be this like polite, like, especially if you're in like customer service or something, you have to put on this like this whole polite face, and you don't know at all what people are like, because nobody will talk about religion or politics. You kind of see people now on social media showing their true colors, and because we see that like when we're just on our phone, and we see them in person, and we're like, oh, that, like you see their whole worldview, like because they put it on display. A lot of people do now. And so now it's like this weird place where it's like, we still don't talk about it, but I still know everything about what you believe, and I don't agree with it. And it's snowballed into something extremely crazy.
It has. I agree wholeheartedly with this. I don't know when this started, where this cultural, ban on talking about politics or religion, like in polite society. It's like, why? Now I get not doing it at work. All right, I get that. Don't be spreading your religion at work. I get that part.
Yeah, but, that'd be nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Which it only seems to apply to certain religions, I've noticed. I remember in the Army, like this one person in my unit would send out emails to everybody, and the end of his email was like a Bible verse down there. And I was like, all right, honestly, I don't care that there's a Bible verse at the end of your email. I don't give a shit. But imagine if it was like anything else, like any other religion or whatever, or the wrong religions, like I don't know, you could probably get away with like Buddhism or but like try to throw it.
No matter what like religion you say you are, if it's not Christianity, you will become a caricature in a lot of these people's minds.
Yes.
Like if you're Buddhist, oh, you're that spiritual Buddhist person, especially if like you're a woman, you know, they're like, oh, you're just that Buddhist girl. Like, and we see like how you are, and like, oh, you're gonna do your incense and you're gonna do your like, and they don't ever really authentically engage in like what it is that you think and feel and like, believe and stuff, because in their mind they've already like put you in this little box that like, oh, you're that person. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's like what white Christians do with a lot of other people group, basically any other people group.
Anyone else, literally anybody else. So try doing that as a Wiccan. Try putting, something at the end like that and see how that goes. Like telling them how great witchcraft is and how your unit reacts to that. I don't know. It's just, but it's so you can't do it at work. I got that part. And school, even less so. But amongst your friend group, you could, but they don't do it there either, usually, unless their friend is part of the same club. Right. And our friend groups are shrinking. Society's becoming more and more atomized. There are fewer and fewer third spaces. Yeah. And so they do it online. And they're, I guess I'm glad they're saying it, because the only thing that bothers me is that a lot of them are fucking cowards. They hide behind anonymous accounts, and they're saying like the most horribly racist and awful shit out there, and they would never have the balls to say it out loud. Which also makes you wonder, like, if all of my almost, when it comes to talking about politics, I don't talk about, well, the work I do now is politics, so I do. But, before that, I didn't talk about politics and everything. But I could still espouse my political views anytime I wanted. Hey, I think everyone should be equal. Healthcare. Right. I think everybody that there's no one can shit on me for saying that. Right. If I had political views that would get me fired, I would reevaluate those political views. I would. I don't understand how they don't connect those dots.
It's called a persecution complex.
It goes right into the group we're talking about. So
they just don't understand me. No one understands me.
My favorite is when they say, well, Jesus said that we would be hated. So that's how I know I'm right. Because it's like, oh Christ. So how did you get involved with this Christian? Well, so what was your denomination? I can't recall.
Really Pentecostal. So
okay.
I guess you could say like Assemblies of God, or but like anything Pentecostally is like what my dad would like bring me to. Because he was all about speaking in tongues and like the gifts of the Spirit and laying on of hands to heal people. And like my dad was a big influence there, and I was just a fucking kid, I'm like going to church with him, and like, but he was very, very like intense about it, where like he would, like when I laid down for bed, he would play the Jesus movie for me to fall asleep to every night.
Which Jesus movie? Is that the name?
It's the big one that like
The Passion of Christ?
No.
I was like, Jesus, really?
I think it's just called like the Jesus movie.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, I don't know that one.
And it's just like it's a depiction of the gospel, like what happened in like the gospel, whatever. So it's like Jesus is born, and then like his whole life and the things he said, basically just depicted in a movie version. So I mean, there's still some really fucked up shit in there, like the crucifixion, for example. But it's like a real life reenactment of the gospel, basically. And I would fall asleep to that every night, and like stuff like that. Like he wouldn't let me watch certain Disney movies. He wouldn't let me watch anything. He would like review every single movie I watched to make sure that it didn't have any of this, that, and the other thing in it. Maybe
the Jesus film. It says
it could be that one.
His life, his death, our hope.
This is the 90s, so this is
this says it was made in 1979.
Okay,
so it might be.
I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to. Hold on.
Yeah, pull up. Yeah. You're looking right to it. So.
Yeah. But so hold on.
The Jesus
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
I can't.
Jesus Film Project. It might be that one. But
Yeah.
regardless, like that's like I would fall asleep to that every night, and like there'd be parts where Jesus would be like freaking out and flipping over tables. And as a kid, I was scared.
Yeah.
Like why is Jesus mad now? Like it's okay, like for him to do that. And like I was like, but I was too scared to ask questions because like Christianity is fucking terrifying.
It is.
And
it
like,
is.
and my dad was a scary guy. Like you didn't know what he was gonna freak out about or get upset about. Like I'd be like playing Pokemon because I really liked Pokemon, and I'd be playing like my Game Boy. This is when I was a little bit older, like maybe like 11 or something, and like a bunch of my dad's church friends like bombarded me playing this Pokemon, telling me like this is satanic and they're pocket monsters and this is of the devil. And it's so funny now because now like I have my children and like we had a party with my dad there and she opened up like a Pokemon plushie. My dad didn't say shit. And I'm like, of course not. Like it was scary back then in the moment when everything was spooky. And now it's like, because your group doesn't like really see it as an issue anymore. Now it's not an issue for you anymore. And it's like, do you remember when you freaked out about this? And I think he wouldn't even really remember the way that I do, you know?
This is something that, you know, it's kind of unfair, but it does bug me because what I wanted was people to stop pretending or stop claiming that stuff that was clearly not satanic to be satanic. That's what I wanted. Now they've stopped and I'm mad. Like I was like, okay, because you know, now it kind of bothers me.
They chilled out a lot, but they still do. Like the Barbie movie. My dad was like freaking out about the Barbie movie last year. It was kind of
about
fun.
What?
Oh, like just because feminism. Because
I was thinking Satanism.
That, but also like it's not like Satan is like in charge. Like he might not say that, but he feels that. Satan's like, you know, the author of feminism, the author of like all these things. And he kept going off about this one sexual joke that they made. I forget what it was now. Shit. What did they say with beat you off? That joke.
I didn't see the movie, so yeah.
Oh, really? Oh
no, I know.
Yeah, no, but he was like so upset about that one sexual joke. Like, and it's people got so spooked about that movie that like he's like, I'll never watch it. I'll never and I'm like, why not? And he's like, beat you off. Like, that's
come on.
Like, and kids don't understand that if it's a child, like it goes over their head a bit. I don't know.
Has your dad? You should introduce your dad to a television anthology called Looney Tunes, and tell me if you can't find lots of double entendre and sexual innuendos in that series. Like, yeah, come on, it's just
I know
the pearl clutching is just so absurd.
It's the feminism, like that was certainly demonized when I was in it. And so it's that whole ideology. So the right took that and like they went nuts about that for a while. So my dad now is like the MAGA guy. Like as time has went on, he's like devolved and followed the whole political pipeline to the MAGA cult, basically. So like he's had this cult since he was young. Like he grew up Mormon. So in his mind, like, oh, Pentecostalism, that's freeing. That's so much better than Mormonism. Like, and so he sort of convinced his whole family to get out of Mormonism and become like evangelical Christians. And some, and some did like very fervently become evangelical. Other ones just sort of left Mormonism and like didn't really engage with evangelicalism very much. But my dad was very fervent in his beliefs in that. And he met my mom, and like it's kind of insane because my dad is so pure and purity culture and all this stuff. Like he married my mom like within a month of knowing her because that's what you do. And so my mom was like, "This is a little crazy." Because at first my mom was like with it and like she's Christian and whatever, but she's like, "Oh, he's like crazy." So she left him, like, but they stayed together for a while, you know. I was like probably 3 or something when she left. So like, I don't even remember them being together. My mom is a whole different story. She's very religious and right wing and all that stuff. But like, she considers herself to just be like just not like going to church and not like doing any of that stuff. So really it's that whole, like, she was enabling him basically. Like she saw what he was doing and it's like, that's the right thing to do. I'm just not doing it. You know? And so she's like, oh, your dad will raise you Christian. But that's the thing, like she saw the craziness, but also kind of believed the craziness, but didn't want to like live her life that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. She liked the whole God thing in small doses. She's like, I don't want to stack this on too much here. And then, I gotta say,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say your dad has got to be one hell of a smooth talker. Your dad talked some Mormons into being Pentecostals. He talked your mom into marrying him after 1 month. Like, Jesus Christ! Like, what does this guy do for a living? Because he's got a silver tongue.
You would think he does not at all. Like,
all right, this is not adding up. This is not nothing about this is making sense.
So when he was young, he was just like pushing his religion on everybody, and he had his like, he was very passionate about it in the beginning. Like, you know, it's kind of like when you like Willy Wonka, you know, you get the golden ticket and you're so excited and you don't know what kind of bullshit's about to come. Like, but that's how he was he had that golden ticket and he wanted to tell everybody about it in that moment. So basically his brand of Christianity and how he like internalized it, he was so like passionate about it in that moment that he did convince a lot of people like this is bullshit and whatever. And a lot of people did listen to him, like his own mom. But yeah, but he's really not a talkative guy. He's very like not very articulate. I honestly think it is trauma induced. He had a very, very traumatic upbringing. It's really funny we're talking about my dad this in this depth, but I think that he just has a lot to undo and a lot to like. He's very conflicted about a lot of things. He was abused and stuff like that, and so that sort of takes away from, I think, his strength in his voice, because I think he could have a much stronger voice, but it's hard for him to set a boundary. It's hard for him to like do a lot of things like that. He would need to verbalize something negative. Like he's just been through a lot, honestly. So he's not the most verbal person. Back then, maybe he was really just a different person. I think it's just how it kind of goes when you're younger and fervent and whatever. That probably factor in, because I didn't really know him back then, obviously. Like, but as time has gone on, I think that he just really needs therapy and really needs like, and he's sort of like reserved and like. My dad is a complicated person. He really is. He is. And I have the complicated relationship with him because obviously I am leftist, I am queer, I am non-binary, I am atheist. Basically I set boundaries with him and I'm like, hey, like you're not going to be convinced by me probably, and I'm not going to be convinced by you when it comes to like these topics. So we can just have it's a very surface level relationship where like if I need something, he shows up for me. If he needs something, I show up for him. And like that's about what it is. We don't have any other conversations because we both know how completely different we are now. And so that's also a possibility because I am who I am. I'm sure he's probably a lot more talkative around his MAGA friends. You know what I mean? And I'm a lot more talkative with you as opposed to with him. So that's probably a factor as well.
Yeah, God, to be a fly on the wall, those conversations. I wonder about that sometimes because
it's not fun. Because he invites me sometimes to like his MAGA friends' pool parties, and I almost always say no. Almost always. I cannot. I'm like, I can do one-on-one with you, but please do not take me to these places. Because like one of his MAGA friends the other day is a landlord and he owns lots of properties and he's just like the slimiest person you can imagine. And the thing is, my dad's such a genuine, like he wants to do the right thing, but is like completely misguided and has the worst like worldview in the world, whatever, like super toxic and harmful. And like, he wants to do the right thing, but this guy that is his friend is just like a scuzzball. And like, it's hard because it's like, I'll see him and like the conversations they have and the stuff I want to just like rip into them and say. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like for my own mental health, I can only do like one-on-one with you. But
Yeah.
regardless, I grew up in that world and was not super convinced. I mean, it was scary and terrifying, and I was so scared of hell at the age of like 6, 7. Like I was trying to like get my classmates on board with it because I'm like,
Right.
this is terrifying, and as a 7-year-old, you're like burdened with the responsibility of other people's eternal destinations. That's a lot for a fucking kid to take on.
Yeah.
Like I was having nightmares. I was like so worried. I would try and like make my teacher show everyone Veggie Tales because it was like, you know, it was what I knew as a kid, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and
for everyone's eternal lives.
And it makes sense, right? Because if you genuinely believed that your neighbor, your friends, your family, your loved ones, of fucking strangers, that they're about to walk into a house that is on fire and they don't realize it, you would do everything in your power to stop them from doing that, including physically. Say what?
I told myself that exact thing whenever I felt like conflicted. Like, should I share? Should I, you know, be unashamed or not? You know, it's like don't be ashamed of the gospel or whatever. It's like here's one of those moments. What do I do? I'd always ask myself, like, if someone was in a burning building, would I want to save them? And it's so intense and anxiety inducing, and like all of your connections with people become a mission. And it's like, damn, like you're alienating yourself from everybody else.
It is. It's exactly what you're doing, and you're convinced you're doing the right thing, which is why I'm always a little suspicious of Christians who don't proselytize. Although I would prefer they not do it. If they're not doing it actively, I'm like, okay, I don't know if you really believe this, because if you genuinely think that this is happening, you wouldn't give a fuck if it annoyed people. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm trying to save your life here. So that's they go a lot further than that though, because I do understand the, you know, people spreading like that, the Great Commission, you know, go ye in all the world and preach the gospel, baptize in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, which I believe that was one of the end of the book of Mark, like the part that was added later on, if I remember correctly. I think that was like a forgery later on. Also, with the Great Commission, I always find it hilarious that Jesus came out and gave this Great Commission. Hey, the most important thing for humanity is to make sure that they know me so they can get to heaven, spread this to as many people as possible, and never bothered to tell them about the Western Hemisphere. Never bothered to tell them that there were millions of people on the other side of the planet who were going to live 1,500 years without ever hearing this. Kind of makes you wonder if Jesus knew about it at all. It's just kind of odd. But
yeah, and Jesus himself, you know, allegedly did not, like, I don't think he viewed himself as a savior of the world the way that they like perpetuated it in John. Whoever wrote the book of John saw Jesus that way. But like if the words of Jesus are actually what he said, it was just more about like forgiving debts and stuff like that. Like he didn't say like you know, there's a lot of things that were in John, were not in the other gospels, that Jesus, I don't think Jesus really saw himself as a savior. Like, and they put it up that way.
It's a really good deep dive into just the person / character of Jesus. It's fascinating. On like, it's so weird that it's been 2,000 years, but after the death of Jesus, reading about the early days of Christianity is a blast. Honestly, there were like 40 different types of Christians that broke out. They were arguing. Yeah, they were arguing about essentially. I know, right? They started off right where they stayed, and essentially the main arguments were about Jesus, about who he was, or I guess what he was more than who he was. Like, was he just a man? Was he a spirit being? Was he fully God and fully man? Was he half God and half man, which is not the same as fully God and fully man? Like, they were just, you know, arguing with each other the entire time about this. And looking back now, we're still kind of like, because Jesus, like most historians, like agree there was, if not like an actual person that this is like definitively like someone it's based on at least, or maybe an amalgamation of a few people, but most people seem to think that there was some guy that this is based on. And this person would have been most likely, I know what you've seen, but that was like a they call them zealots, the Judaism, the zealots of Judea, and essentially talking about one thing Jesus always said was repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Like this is all ending, and a lot of them saw these words of these. Say what?
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. Like he had like a lot of sort of doomsday sort of mindsets, like the end is near, sort of like that sort of thing.
Yeah. If you read about the historical Jesus, they'll refer to him as like an apocalyptic rabbi. Like he was preaching like the end. This is done. And a lot of people, when Jesus died, they're like, oh, all right, I guess that didn't work out like we planned. And they kind of formed like this sect around him. Was like, oh, what he really meant was, and then it started
form a loophole like they do today. Like these like twist themselves in knots. Like, and that makes so much sense for what Christianity really is. Like it's like a twist. Like this, your logic, like, we had to make this fit somehow.
Exactly, we had to make it fit, and and listen, credit where credit's due. Christianity does an amazing job with adapting. Like they that's why they're the biggest religion on earth. Why they've been around for so long. That they will adapt to their culture, to their time. They will take elements of a society and incorporate into Christianity in funny ways too. Because I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, we didn't celebrate Halloween because Halloween was the devil's holiday, which is very funny when I found out like in high school that no, it's a Christian holiday. It's All Hallows Eve is literally a Christian holiday. They co-opted like All Saints. No, wait, that's the Christian holiday. Oh, All Saints Day is the Christian holiday. All Hallows Eve is the pagan holiday. And the church said, oh, we're combining them now. It's a Christian holiday. And they took it just like they did with Christmas for Saturnalia. And I don't know. It's just that when you learn, the more you learn about Christianity, you're like, okay, this is just a patchwork held together by bubble gum and chicken wire. And they're just pretending that this all came down from God, which is what annoys me when like you said with your dad and your people with the Pokemon and stuff, how they apparently it's not demonic anymore. Right. God changed his mind. And it's like, okay, look, I get that people change, society changed, but you guys said you're getting this information from God. The pastors are saying this, everyone in the church. Yeah. So either God changed his mind, or you were not listening to God properly, all of you, or maybe God didn't tell you shit. Maybe you just made it up. I just admit that. That's all I want them to say.
Yes. Shit. Like I had the point too. I had it.
I hate when that happens. I always have these. I always have this whenever I'm because that happens to me all the time. I just scribble it down real quick.
No, but I agree with you. And it's like, also one thing that they say is like, we should be set apart. We are holy. We are, just the light of the fucking world. But then it's like when shit happens in the church that's really fucked up, we're not perfect. We're sinners. And it's like, what the fuck are you?
Which one is it?
The light of the world, or are you fucking sinners? Like what?
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways.
Are we sanctified or not? You guys are making a big deal out of this, and apparently we're not. And
some people, even some like not crazy, I won't say crazy, but there's some Christians that are to the point where it's like, I am sinless. In order to be a Christian, you need to be sinless. There are people out there that do think that. I've seen it on TikTok. There's some wild people in these TikTok lives. That like, I believe I am sinless, and a real Christian will not have any sin. And so like they try to make it work. They try, because you cannot like both be the light of the world and also be like doing atrocities in the church. It's not even like, I stole a pencil. It's like, and they'll tell some lines of things will tell you you're going to hell for that, like right comfort. But
that's what we learn. Yeah.
But like you're fucking doing all types of like crimes in the church, and it's like, no one's perfect.
Yeah, they do this a lot with Trump, with Donald Trump, and say what?
I agree.
Yeah, I was a conservative when I was younger. I started coming out of it probably around 2010 or so, and I wasn't a conservative at all by the time Trump ran in 2016. But I did think about it sometimes. I was like, what if I was? And then I realized, like, even knowing TJ from back then, there's no fucking way I could have voted for Trump. There's no chance in hell. Like, no matter, even, like, it's just, I would be, or you know what? Let's say that I was like as far right as I ever was. Even then, I don't think I would. But let's say I was. I would never tell a soul I voted for Donald Trump. I would be embarrassed. I would be ashamed. And watching these folks just, and this is not a defense of Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton can go straight to hell. Like, Bill Clinton is a sex pest and a rapist and all that. Yeah, it's true. But you know, that's not a sentence you want to end with a transfer to something else. However, but this isn't a defense of Clinton, but it's talking about the Christian right, and they crucified that guy. They were talking all the time, rightly, how this guy is not even with the sexual assault stuff, like just with the affair. Like, the sexual assault stuff never happened. They would have given the same amount of shit for, you know, the affair he had with Monica Lewinsky. And like, they're like, well, this is no way that we can't have a person like this leading the country, someone who's this immoral. If he can't be trusted in the small things, how can he be trusted with the large things? And, you know, to see them flip like that with Donald Trump, who's just as bad as Bill Clinton, and resort to, well, we're not electing a pastor, we're electing a president. I don't know how they respect themselves. I really don't. How they've sold their morals out like that.
I think it comes down to a lack of self-awareness, because like one thing I've realized coming out of Christianity is that we are not above animals. We are tribalistic in nature, and knowing our true nature, I think, helps us to keep ourselves in check, to be like, oh, I'm sort of like just agreeing with my in-group about this thing. And so like being self-aware about that, about our very sort of nature and inclination to like want to fit in with your social group and everything. Like, I think that people on the right are typically very religious, and so they think they're above the animals, they're above everyone else, they're above, like, they own the world. God literally endowed them with, like, and so they don't see that their own like weaknesses as human beings, where they're like just latching up because this person is like promising them everything that their worldview says that they want. You know, everything, like, and so they don't recognize, like, you're just agreeing with your in-group, your human infallibilities are getting in the way. They don't like look internally about those kinds of things a lot of times, and so they can't recognize what they're actually doing. And I mean, we're all like susceptible to that, you know. But I think being aware of it and being like, oh, am I doing that right now? Let me, like, you know, humble myself a bit, ironically. You know, like, myself so humble.
I know.
Like, nah, am I just doing this thing that like human nature wants us to do because we want to like not be rejected by others and want to, like, you know, fit in and survive. Like, it comes down to survival, and like, is this like this part of me, or, you know, so like having that ability to like look inward and see like what the fuck am I actually doing?
Yeah, man, I agree with you like 100% on that. I just have a little more negative view on it than that, and it's
I mean, that's the first thing I thought of, but there is so much to say about it.
Well, it's true. Like, you know, being in a group and the group accepting you, and of course you're predisposed to think that your group is thinking correctly. So if they're all saying Trump is great, well, he must be. And it's just like being in church. Like, it's always interesting arguing with religious folks, you know, because what I like about it is, well, one, we're correct, but two is that all the doubts and stuff you bring up, you know, they've had them too. You know, they still have them. They just shove them down more and more. So you have a huge advantage there. And the more you hang out with the people who think like that, the easier it is to like push those negative thoughts, those questioning thoughts to the side. But the reason that I see it as a little worse for, you know, the MAGA folks in particular is they not only you know, appeal to being accepted by their in-group, but they also take this perverse pleasure in performative sociopathy. It is like the foundation of that, and they print it. How many times have you seen like Donald Trump 24, fuck your feelings, cry more? Like they literally, as many issues as I have with folks who are like liberals or leftists or socialists, I see significantly less. I can't wait to fucking punish people on the other side of the aisle, and they deserve it in a lot of ways. But like if we want to pass universal health care, I want right wingers to have it too. I want them to be able to access health care whenever they want. I think that the most vile, like disgusting, bigot working at John Deere or whatever. No shade to the fine folks at John Deere, just to say, but like just I picked a random place. But he deserves a fair wage for his compensation. Like he deserves that. And so you don't get that from a lot of conservatives. Like, no, they don't deserve shit. They should be kicked out of the country. It's like, okay, that's the one issue that's different, I think, is that they really enjoy hurting people. How often do they say, like, oh, what I'm going to say is really going to offend some folks? Now, listen, I say a ton of offensive shit, but I never started off like, oh, I can't wait to offend these folks. I can't wait to hurt their feelings. No, and I don't care if your feelings are hurt. I don't, but I don't take pleasure in it. And that's the part that I think sets a lot of, not all of us, obviously, but a lot of us apart from them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that the base of that, of like the whole MAGA Trumpism is that at its core.
It is, yeah.
I think a lot of these people don't see that, or they don't go to that extent all the time. That's what it is. You're correct. Like that's the nature. It's just like, for example, like I'll have a MAGA person who like wears a MAGA hat and everything like that, but they're still very like peace, like, and blah, blah, blah too. And like, they have a lot of like conflicting ideas that they haven't challenged. And so like, because they believe in God and followed this whole line of Christianity for so long, like, they see Trump as like supporting that despite his character, they'll do it despite all of that, because that's, he's a shitty dude, but he'll do the policies I want him to do. So they'll like write all that shit off and still claim to be a decent person while supporting this piece of trash.
Yeah. There is a lot of that.
The policies. That's what they'll say.
I know. And then like what I like about that is you're right, because the people that you hear from are the worst ones. They're the ones that on have
the internet, or like the people hiding behind their fucking like
exactly.
Those fucks for sure. But then they're just like genuine people who like believe
regular
in God,
folks,
and like they're like, oh, we'll overlook because he'll do everything I want him to do.
And then when you ask them, like, well, what do you want to do? Or like, what do you support? It's like, well, listen, you don't understand. Hamas is hiding under buildings. So all those kids just have to die. And like
they'll write it off.
What?
They'll just shut down. It doesn't even matter.
Doesn't matter at all. Yeah. And it is like that is some monstrous shit you just said right there. And this is so upsetting to me, because I know it's stupid, but I genuinely thought we'd learned our lesson after the war on terror. Like this exact same thing. I mean, it is a copy and paste that, oh, what happened in 9/11 was bad. And, we have these terror cells that are out here. Let's start a 20-year conflict in like 5 different countries, displacing millions of people, killing hundreds of thousands. And it took us longer than it should have, like maybe 10 years for most of the nation to be like, okay, this is way worse than 9/11, everything that we've done here. And this stuff happens in Israel, and way more people, like people who I would have respected, just a few years ago, like, well, yeah, of course they have to level Gaza. Of course they have to do it. It's just the ease in which people separate themselves from obvious immorality is really disturbing. And for when it's aimed toward, like, I'm not gonna say benign seems the wrong word, because it's actually quite destructive when it's aimed toward people domestically, especially minority groups, women, and like that. They will. I was gonna say. the anger that they have toward the left, I think a lot of it is based on, now this is a charge against the left that they make that is accurate, where they say that, well, all you folks on the left, you just look down on us and you condescend to us. And it's like, brother, how can I not? I can't, I mean, you guys are fucking morons. Now, like, I will gladly admit that sometimes we can be quite arrogant, but I can't speak for everyone else. I've earned the right to be goddamn arrogant. I know what I'm talking about, and you don't. Like, this is not a discussion between two informed equals. This is one person who knows what they're talking about, and another person who I would be surprised could spell their name. Yeah, and so I'm talking to a 4-year-old. Of course, you're gonna feel condescension. So then they get mad about it. And that's what I don't understand. I don't get that at all. Because what have you heard this? I'm sure you have, where you're talking to these folks and they'll say stuff like, well, like, this usually happens with people like in real life, and you're like, why are you a conservative? And they'll say, look, you know more about politics than me, but it's like, all right, then why are you arguing with me? Like, what's this argument about then? Like, if someone came to fix my car, I don't know shit about cars, and I'm not going to argue with them when they tell me what's wrong and say, I don't appreciate your condescending. So I don't know fuck about cars. So of course they're going to be condescending. If I talk back, I don't know. I just don't get that mindset, man. I don't understand it.
Right. No, it's it's feeling threatened by someone being intelligent, someone being informed.
They're not used to that. Yeah.
And they're threatened by it. Like the very nature of it itself. Like they see it as like, you're so smart, but I don't want anything to do with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've seen that a lot where like someone will be arguing with me. Like back when I was a Christian, I would argue with atheists often because like I liked doing that. And so that's why I am the way that I am now. Like I liked engaging with it and like trying to convince atheists. And of course I always got my ass handed to me. And I never thought that I had my ass handed to me. And I think that that's the issue. People don't realize that they're actually having their asses handed to them, but they don't know that. They can't see that. And they don't accept that. They just get angry. And what they do is they just scoff it off. And like, ugh, you're just, and then they fall into those caricatures again. You're a caricature in my mind. And I'm going to dismiss you now. Like we've had this whole discussion, you're making way too much sense. And now I'm going to dismiss you, and all the thought stopping, like techniques that are in their brain, mechanisms that are in their brain start to work. And they're like, we're done. And they shut down and they move on. And they either double down or like low key kind of think about it. I double down and I'm like, I'm right. Like, if you like, I am right. There's no talking to someone like that. So even if you show you were clearly wrong, they're already going into it like, I am correct. So nothing you can do, you know? And so often when I'm discussing things with these people, because I love discussing this shit with like people who are in that mindset, because it is like fascinating to me. And
it really is.
It's like, why are you shutting down right now? Like, what you're starting to shut down. Why are you? And I try to like get them before they do, so they can like sort of self-reflect of like, why am I shutting down? And like, sometimes it ends with someone being like, never mind. Like they're kind of nice to me after that. Or kind of like, I like try to get them to not do that thing where they just write me off right away, you know, but it's so hard because it's just so instantaneous.
This is so wild. First, I want to mention, you talk about you used to argue with atheists as a Christian. That's kind of fascinating, because when I was a Christian, the one thing I would never do is argue with atheists. I remember like that was kind of a rule I had, not because, you know, I was afraid. I argued all the time. It was like, you know, just like how I'm born. But I didn't see the point, because if we couldn't agree on the foundation that God exists, what is there to argue about? Like, I mean, even then I knew I couldn't prove God existed. I couldn't get into that argument. So I was like, I'm not going to, so I never argued with atheists because I just didn't see how it would go anywhere.
Right. That's correct. So I'm like, if I'm correct, I should be able to do this.
I
thought I was right. Like I had that whole mindset of like, this is the right way to live. This is like, you know, the truth. Like if it's the truth, it shouldn't be, you know, like I didn't realize I couldn't prove God, you know, I didn't think about all that. Like it's like I didn't accept that premise of like I can't prove God. Like I would like try to do it in my own way of like this is like all the things that I'm sure you've experienced many times, like personal experiences, personal anecdotes, what the Bible says, like
the power of God will win them over. Of course, yeah. You don't. And when you were talking about when you like whenever you argue with religious folks and how they dig their heels in more, especially if you do it online. Like doing it online is very, because no one wants to be embarrassed publicly, and it's unfortunate that people think this way, because if you're in an argument, literally the worst thing that could happen is that you're wrong. That's the worst possible outcome. Then you're like, oh, okay, well, I learned something. I was incorrect. That's it. And you can just move on. I mean, like, it happens to everyone. Like, people are wrong all the time. It can happen to literally anybody. Happens to some of us a lot less often than others. But I mean, it's like anyone could be wrong. If that's just part of being a person, you shouldn't be afraid of it. But people really are. The worst thing, I didn't think about this, but until just now, where you're talking about these outcomes, like the worst one is actually a lot more frightening, is that you could be turned into a bullshit like preacher story about talking to an atheist. Because I'm sure you guys remember these. Like I remember there's one I had. So my pastor in Tabernacle Baptist Church in Lebanon, Missouri, Hal Hightower, he would tell this story all the time. And he would say that he met an agnostic and they were arguing about, religion and faith and everything. And he said, halfway through the conversation, he goes, hey, hold on. You're an agnostic, right? The guy said, yeah. He goes, well, the root word for agnostic is the letter A, which means no in Greek, and, gnosis, which means knowledge in Greek. So that means you don't know anything. And the guy said, how about that? And look, I was as dedicated, I was like 13. I was like, that did not happen. That is fucking ridiculous. I mean, even as a child, and he told the story all the time. I still remember it like 30 years later. And I just like some of these like pedantic, like, I know it's hilarious. So go ahead.
I think they have a mic drop. It's like a fucking, like that is the truth. And it's
I was embarrassed for him. I was like, look, I can't be the only one in this auditorium that think that story is absurd. I refuse to believe that. And this one didn't come from my pastor, but I don't know if you remember Josh Fierstein. He's from way back in like the Facebook days. He's this he's a really big dude with a beard, and he wore a red hat like before Trump. So that wasn't even with Trump or everything. I know it's just funny it worked out that way, but he had all these Facebook videos that went viral, like circa 2012 or something like that, where he would take down evolution and abortion and stuff. And he was at January 6th, I saw, and interesting enough, but I know, so weird
he went
guy.
Right in. He's like, no, the red hat works well.
I know, it went perfect for him. And I remember him talking about how one way you could prove that creation was real, that God created the universe and everything. He's like, because we call it the universe, which is like in Latin or Greek or whatever, it's turns out to like one word or something that means it's the word of God. That means it's real. Or do you remember I can't keep thinking of these because they're so dumb. They keep happening. The Duck Dynasty guy. One of them.
Shit! People love the Duck Dynasty guy in my churches. Like all the churches I went to, they're fucking Duck Dynasty dudes. Yeah.
I remember he was doing an interview and he said two things that were wild, not a pocket. The first thing he said was, well, he's the old guy, like Cy, I think his name was. And he was talking about, I grew up in the 50s, in the 40s or whatever, like before, the civil rights era and everything. He's like, and in my memory, black people and white people got along just fine. I don't see what the issue was. And I remember saying that. And I was like, yeah, funny how that works, man. I'm sure they were very kind to you. I'm sure they were super nice. It's like, I can't wonder why that
was, just so great.
Yeah. And another thing he said was about the existence of Jesus was God. And he said, well, look, the one way that you can prove that Jesus is God, what year is it? It's 2004. It's 2004 years since when? Birth of Christ. There you go. And I'm looking, and I hear this shit, and you've heard arguments like this before. And it's like, I love, so we do talks and debates and everything. So I love like hearing strong, powerful arguments. They're fun. Even if I disagree with them, they're fun and they're interesting, but they are nowhere near as fun as a fucking shit ass horrible argument. Those are fascinating. I was like, how did like someone who's part of the same relatively intelligent mammalian species that I'm part of think of something so absurd, be convinced by it, and then say it out loud? Like, that stuff is amazing. You hear this all the time in these circles.
Yeah, it's really like they already know the answer. So give snappy responses to show me that I already know the answer, and I will latch onto it and eat it up like fucking pudding. Like, that's what they do. It's like, it sounds snappy, it sounds smart, it's over my head quite a bit. I already believe in this this premise, so you're just agreeing with what I've already like set up in my mind about what's true. And so that they just like that. And they think that, but it's really just like they're protecting themselves from outside perspectives with these like little like stupid
that just
arguments.
quips and phrases and shit. That's where not just like non-believers have a disadvantage, but people on the political left have a disadvantage, because a lot of our conversation, our points are almost necessarily academic. Like, there's just no short way to say this. There are a billion short ways to spread misinformation. Well, obviously there are only two genders, obviously. And you know, it's like you don't have to, because like if it appeals to like your gut feeling, your intuition, and if it's true like on a very surface level, that's all they need. That's all. It's like why they always say that, well, yeah, there's two genders, you know, or two sexes. Like, it's basic science. Like, yes, you're right. It's basic science. If you're teaching this to a first grader, it's perfectly fine. There's not, I mean, like, this is a great foundation to build on when you get to intermediate science, but they never get past basic anything. And it's like where they talk about, well, capitalism obviously works, you know, it's basic economics. It's amazing how often they use this shit without realizing. They're like, they're saying I'm an idiot. I'm just a total idiot who doesn't dig deep into anything. It's like, or the appeal to common sense. And it's like, it is a constant. It's like, and the common sense one has bugged me since I was a kid. It's like, okay, if I've learned one thing from reading about human history, is the phrase common sense is not all that common is nonsense. Common sense is very common. That's why it's called common fucking sense. And common sense is wrong all the time. All the time. Like, common sense tells you the earth is flat. It does. Like, you go outside, obviously, yeah. And so I hate when they do this shit, when they talk about basic this, basic that, common sense. Yeah, of course, like, you would stop there because you're a goddamn moron. I'm sorry. Like, what do you want me to tell you? It's infuriating, man.
And they always say facts don't care about your feelings, when basically they're going off of vibes, like, all the time. Like, there's no facts that are behind a lot of these claims and a lot of these things that they think. Like, yeah, the earth is flat if you just look around and don't have any facts but what's in front of you. And not like, you know, a little bit more like research, because you're right.
And the facts don't care about your feelings is hilarious, because like you said, they have a tenuous grasp on facts in the first place. So you have no right to say stuff like that. But
here's some facts that prove you wrong. And they're like, nah, bye.
Nope, not interested. But they also, like, everything about conservatism is based on feelings. Everything. Like, there's like no facts at all. Like, if facts matter so much, like, tell me, like, what's the fact of who's getting injured because Colin Kaepernick took a knee during a football game, before a football game? That is all feelings. That is, no one's losing money. Colin Kaepernick would be the only person who is actually taking any fire on this. And like, nationwide revolt over the shit. Dr. Seuss's family decides, hey, 2 of these books got some racial stereotypes in them. Well, books you've never heard of, we're not gonna sell them anymore. Conservatives lose their mind, wearing pictures of Cat in the Hat, come and get it, and shit
now,
like that.
All of a sudden, the books can't be burned.
Yeah. Tell the Dixie Chicks that facts don't care about your feelings. You know, when you know, you guys just, it's just like their entire movement is based on cancel culture. It's based on hurt feelings, like, don't criticize their religion. Don't tell them that your ideas are backwards and wrong. If their feelings get hurt, like, they burn the place to the ground, like, or they go to war over some shit. And I just,
it's fucking dangerous.
It is, yeah, it is. Like, that's where you're talking about the violence, and we're already there. So we're talking about the violence that's involved here. Is that they? I know you talked about this before about the what's the word? like the duplicitous definition of violence they have, because they'll say that, you know, street level crime, that's violent crime, and it is. No one's saying it's not. However, you know, keeping people from receiving healthcare so they die, or restricting someone's access to you know, abortion or prenatal care, or bombing people in Gaza, that's not violence. That's nonviolent right there. And it's one of those sides are a lot more violent than the other. Like the fact that these people are committing street level crime in the first place is more or less a direct result of their socioeconomic status, that which can be classified as violence as well. But they love it. They love that kind of violence. They will gladly support it and paint themselves as the hero while doing so. Onward Christian soldiers. Like they love that shit. It is really dark to see.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it's only violence when it fits their narrative, when it fits their agenda. And that's it. They only care about violence when they think that it's going to threaten them somehow, or it's just really about them. You know, like if Fox News says something, they're going to go along with whatever Fox News is telling them, or whatever outlet they like been listening to, like fucking Rush Limbaugh. Like I know a lot of people, like you know, like they've been raised in that like cesspool. So yeah, anything that goes against what Rush Limbaugh has told them, they don't care. It's this narrow scope of the world where it's, you know, very fucked up and racist and capitalistic and so many other isms that it's holy the shit.
Listen, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I too was raised by Rush Limbaugh. I listened to Rush Limbaugh every day for years. I only
knew him through other people telling me about what he said. And so
all of it was true. Trust me. It was all like I'm sure it was all shitty stuff they told you. All of it's true. Rush Limbaugh was a demon, man. He I was still a conservative in high school and everything. Although I was never as far right as everyone else. Like to me, like their
fucking empathy that like wouldn't let you cross certain lines.
It wouldn't. Yeah. And I think being a minority played a big part in that too, where I was like, okay, it's really strange how fixated you guys are on, you know, the horrors of the black community. Like, okay, I don't like the way you're saying this. But Rush Limbaugh, I listened to him every day for years. I was a conservative and everything. And I will say that what Rush Limbaugh did a tremendous amount of damage to the nation. Like he pumped in this poison to millions of people, and it metastasized over the years to, you know, the Trump phenomenon. Like Rush Limbaugh is a direct precursor to Donald Trump, you know, just, you know, 30 years early. And I think I figured out then the importance of being a excellent communicator, because the stuff Rush Limbaugh said was terrible. I remember him going on TV once and talking about, he was arguing with William Shatner, very weird clip. I think about it, but like, why those two were arguing, I don't know. But William Shatner was talking about how he believes everyone should have health care, and Rush Limbaugh said, no, I don't think they should. And William Shatner was like, well, what do you mean everyone shouldn't have it? What the fuck are you talking about? And he says, well, it's just like anything else. You know, if you have a lot of money, you're going to be able to afford a really nice house. And if you don't have a lot of money, you're going to have a smaller apartment or a bungalow or something. And William Shatner was like, yeah, but we're not talking about mansions. We're talking about healthcare. Like he was just bewildered at how fucking insane this point was. And I remember, go ahead.
That's political violence.
It is. Yes, that's exactly, like, people will die because of this. They will be exposed to the elements. They won't get healthcare, and you're fine with it. You're perfectly okay. And I remember when Obamacare came out, one of the provisions, like the most popular one, was that Obamacare said that you can change insurance companies or get insurance even if you have a pre-existing condition. That was one of the main things hanging people up. You know, before that if you had cancer, diabetes, anything, honestly, your insurance premiums would be sky. You could never afford it. You might as well not get insurance. And like, okay, this is just stopping people from getting the health care that they need. I remember Rush Limbaugh being very much against this idea. He thought it was insane. And his argument was, well, listen, if I have like a car insurance company and you get into a car accident and then you come to me paying a small premium, I'm gonna pay for that car. That's not fair. I'm gonna lose money. And I was like, yeah, that's true. That's true, but we don't give a fuck because this is healthcare. Like people need this to survive. We're not. He kept commodifying human life, and he did so in a very entertaining way. Like a lot of people they shit on Trump or whatever for good reason. They say he's not a good entertainer. Donald Trump's a hell of an entertainer. He's a hell of an entertainer. It's fantastic.
He's a media manipulator. He is
exactly.
He's so good at that.
He's great. Yeah.
Like people are fucking all over the media. So like if he can manipulate that, he can manipulate fucking tons of people.
It's perfect. Yeah.
And I think about people with like a chronic illness. Like someone didn't think about this for 2 fucking seconds because it's like people want to pull themselves up by the fucking bootstraps. They want to. If they have a fucking chronic illness, they can't. So what are they supposed to fucking do? Just suffer and die.
Yeah, they're excess population.
In my friend circles, like people that I know who have chronic illness and shit, they can't fucking do capitalism, and so they don't have safety nets of any sort. It just takes one thing like that to fuck up your entire life and not have any health insurance. And it's like, and I have a job, I have a career, and I have shitty ass health insurance. Like that's not even like, it's like I still have to pay premium. I still have to pay all types of shit when I go to the doctor for anything. And now I can't like get even like primary care a lot. Like I have an appointment for October to hopefully get a primary care doctor. Like that's how it is.
All right, you say that, but you don't understand. If we had universal health care, there'd be long wait time. So I just like we can't do it, right? Yeah, because obviously you can be seen immediately for any issue with our current system. Universal health care is one of the biggest no-brainers in American politics. I'm honestly surprised we don't have it yet. I genuinely am, because I always say there are 2 arguments against it.
Entertaining a fucking clown show instead of actually caring about any issues at all. Like it's entertainment at this point. It's entertainment, it's emotional charge. They don't actually give a fuck about policy whatsoever. It's just, he's fun. He's funny. He makes these misogynistic jokes. He can say what he wants. He gets what he wants. Who the fuck cares?
I know.
We need fucking policies. Like we need more. Like this is not what politics is, and it's become this now.
Well, yeah, it's unfortunately true.
To a degree, like there's like a charisma that a politician has to have, like whatever.
You do, yeah.
But like now it's just a clown show, and they don't even care about policy.
A lot of times you hear people say like derisively that elections are just popularity contests. It's true. That's what they are. I mean, I hate it. I can't stand the fact that people will vote on vibes a lot more than we're willing to admit. Yeah. And you know what? I remember there are some things that are like flashbulb memories I'll never forget. This is one of them. I was listening to the radio, and it was 2016. And when Clinton was running against Trump, and they were interviewing this couple. In my mind, like from their voices, they sound like they were in their 50s and 60s or 60s. And they asked them, hey, so who are you voting for? They're like, oh, we plan to vote for Donald Trump. And they said, okay, so are you guys lifelong Republicans? They're like, well, no, actually, we're not. In 2012, we voted for Obama. We also voted for Obama in 2008. We voted for Bush in 2004 and for Bush in 2000. And I remember just like, how are these people like what the fuck? You went from look, I can see this happening once. I can see that, hey, you voted for Bush, you didn't like what the Republicans had to offer, you studied, now you're Obama. But man, flipping back, I was just like, oh, they probably just did the who would I have a beer with test. Like Bush seems like a fun guy. Oh, this Obama's pretty cool. Oh, look how entertaining this Trump guy is. That's how these folks are voting. And it blows my mind that these folks are. It's scary. Yeah, I hate it.
Mm-hmm. And you can't convince them otherwise. Like as soon as you start to try and convince otherwise, they just won't listen. They don't listen. They don't care. Like it's just
I hate it.
Like I feel crazy.
I know, right?
Passionate about it, but but why am I the crazy one for like caring about people? Like what the fuck is going on? It's like
it's like it's hard to explain because you know what it is. So I remember when I was in the Army and I worked in the recruiting office, and people would come in and they would fail the practice test to join the Army, and so I would help them, study for it and everything. And I had this girl I was working with, and she was like 19, 18 or 19, and she had a weird family history. Like her mom was like in prison or something, or I don't know, it was prison, but her mom was not around when she was like a baby and a kid, and so she ended up being given to her auntie, like her mom's sister, but she didn't start school till like she was like supposed to be like in second grade or something. Like, so she missed a lot of formative years of school. And so I'm working with her, and there was a question on the practice test, and it said that there's a field and there are 2 flagpoles. One flagpole is 10 feet tall, and the second flagpole is 7 feet tall. And it says the 10-foot flagpole cast a 30-foot shadow. How long is the shadow for the 7-foot one? And she didn't know the answer. And I was like, okay, well, so the 10-foot pole has a 30-foot shadow. So the pole is, so the shadow is 3 times longer than the pole. So if you apply that to the 7-foot one, and she goes, oh, it'll be 21 feet. I was like, there you go. That's the answer. And she said, all right, but how did you know to do that? And I didn't have an answer. I still don't. Yeah. I don't have it. I don't. Right. It's just like, but and that's what they say. Yeah, you're probably taught a lot of this like association and connection stuff when you're young, and if you don't get that, it's hard to. And I literally could not answer. I was like, well, I just noticed that it was 3 times longer. I mean, I don't know how to convey that, and that's how I feel sometimes talking to these folks when they're like, oh yeah, I vote for the guy who seems the nicest or the coolest or the funniest, and it's like, this is national policy we're talking about here. And like, I don't give a fuck like how cool you are if you have horrible policies. It is scary that we live with these folks though.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh God. And with the first principles I wanted to talk about real quick before we move on to that is the facts don't care about your feelings thing. This is interesting too, because I don't know if you thought about this before. It seems like something you would have thought of when I thought of this, that all of our laws are actually ultimately based on feelings, and they're irrational. All of them. Because if you ask someone like, hey, do you believe murder is wrong? And you say, well, yeah, I do. Well, why? Well, because if people can murder each other, that means I could get murdered. My friends and family, I don't want that. Okay, but what's so great about you and your family being alive? Well, if we're alive, we can contribute to society, and other people want that too. What's so great about human society? You just keep going down this line. Like, what's so great about life in general? And ultimately, it comes down to we don't want it. Like, that's like we don't want those bad things to happen. So feelings are the basis for our every law and every rule we have.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just dismissing feelings is
like, what? Like, define feelings. Like, what are they talking about? Like, that's the thing. Like, they keep thinking like that they are detracting from feelings and only doing what's rational. That's not how
it works at all.
Oh. I was just having this conversation with someone today, actually, about like femininity and masculinity, and masculinity is logical, femininity is emotional, and they're different. And I'm like, that is not how it works at all. Like, and why is logical like superior to emotional? Like, there's this whole like separation of these two things that they think that they are devoid of like feelings and emotions, and because again, they have an idea in their minds about what emotional means. It's erratic and and that's not like what? Anger's an emotion. That's a
I know, right?
And that's caused war. Like what? Like what the? Like I don't know, dude.
I can't stand that, because I've said this is like all my life I've heard women are more emotional than men. I gotta tell you, folks, I can't tell the difference, and I've been around a pretty long time. And now it's true that generally they're different emotions, but as far as the level, they're just as emotional. Like if people are just as.
It's usually trauma, actually. It's actually, no, I'm traumatized and this fucked me up. And now I am quote unquote emotional. you know?
Yeah.
You haven't experienced that same issue because you're male and whatever. I've lived in society as someone who has a bit more like less experiences. And so someone thinks they're coming from a more rational place when it's really like, it just hasn't affected you personally.
Yeah, it's different issues and different types of emotions and different core. But one example, one example I give, because what they try to say is, okay, yeah, men are emotional, but they're emotional to protect their family. Like, how many of you guys ever protected your family? Get the fuck out of
From
here! Like, we're
what?
not
Other
living in
emotional men?
yeah, hey, you're not living in the Stone Age. You guys aren't fighting off saber-tooth tigers or anything like that. You work at Costco. You've never been in a physical fight in your entire life. Stop saying this shit. And but what it's usually way worse, because look, I've seen guys get into literal shouting matches over who is the best power forward in the Western Conference. Like, they will like be enraged about this shit. So stop miss me with this whole, women are more emotional. No, you guys are just as emotional. I see it all the time, and it's for a lot dumber stuff too. I will gladly admit that part. And I try my best not to. Well, and like we're saying too, it's also pretending that there's some sort of hierarchy of importance between emotion and logic when they're intertwined. You need them both, because if you just use logic, or whatever, like the example with an AI. If we tell an AI, hey, you need to stop all the crime in Houston, Texas, the AI is going to say, kill all the people in Houston, Texas, no more crime. So that's the logical answer, right? But that's not what you're going to do, because you have emotion as well. It's weird. Go ahead.
I was just saying that's a good point.
Yeah. So I was gonna say what pros and cons you run into with content creation, but I think you've already answered that. I think you are. Well, pros. We went over cons mostly. What are some pros that you've?
There's so many pros. Like the connections I've made with. Oh God, like it was a fucking lifeline for me, because I, was a fundamentalist Christian up until I was like mid 20s, like late 20s. I'm 33 now. So it was pretty recent. And so like TikTok is what like opened my eyes. Like I was deeply like traumatized, and I didn't know, like I felt trapped in my situation. And having TikTok was an absolute like support for me. Like I would just share my experiences, having been in like I had started leaving Christianity and realizing it wasn't true, and it was such a process for me. And so sharing my experiences with other people and having people see that experience, like and share their own experiences, was absolutely key for me in getting out of my situation. Because like having been like I got married really young, purity culture marriage, had 2 kids with a super Christian, hyper misogynistic kind of guy. And like, obviously that fucked me up, And so like, but not realizing anything. I didn't realize I was being abused, didn't realize I was like voting against my own rights, and like, because that whole thing with feminism being demonic, like I had to undo so many things. And the people on TikTok and the experiences I've had there, like it was an absolute lifeline for me. Like as I was leaving, as I was like, I had to move in with my dad, which was super uncomfortable. I already gave some background on my dad. So I needed outside support. So having real people who understood me and have gone through similar things as me, and seeing where they're at now, like I saw that I could also do that. Like I didn't even know I had those options, So, I mean, the pros are like insane. Like there's so many amazing things about the content creation that I did. That it was so much more than just like making a silly video that goes viral or whatever. Like that was fun and whatever, but like having like friends now, like I have friends from TikTok that came and hung out last week, like, and we went and had drinks and did karaoke together. And like, I've made genuine connections through social media that I would not have made. And isolation is such a tool of oppression and abuse, that like when you get out of isolation and you connect with other people, you are stronger, and that could also be like a double-edged sword. Because if you're a really fucked up worldview, you can have other people to affirm that as well. And so
A lot of that going around.
Yep. So the positive side is that there's a lot of education just being put out there that, like, for example, critical race theory, right? How like the right is so like, no, we're not doing that in school. Well, they're already learning it on TikTok. like, you know what I mean?
It is funny how I find a lot of their opposition to stuff like equal parts bewildering and adorable. Like they will have, you know, just like loud parent teacher meetings or student body, what is it called? School board meetings. They'll get up there and they'll testify that this obscure book no one's ever heard of, that 3 kids have read in the past 10 years, talks about blowjobs for 3 paragraphs, and they're like, oh my God, we can't have this happen. This has to be gone. And I'm like, okay, folks, you know the internet exists, right? Like, you know this, right? Like, I mean, you think that, yeah, you could ban every one of these books possible. Just as many kids are going to find out. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what world you're living in. Like when the book bans, of course, I'm against them and everything. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know how much damage that's really going to do. Because, I mean, if kids... Go ahead.
I feel like the cat's out of the fucking bag at this point.
Like, yeah.
They even try, like, yeah, maybe like generations down the line, if they have shut down information to the point where we don't have it anymore and we can't do this anymore, like, for a long, long time. But, like, if they shut down TikTok already, like we already have the knowledge that we have because of what we've already seen. And so we can just like share that with other people and keep it going, you know, like, cause I think about that, like with stuff coming up, it's like, well, what's it actually going to look like under another Trump? Like, and there's all these like, very, like, I think a lot of people are afraid right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so I think our minds go to these places of like, what if this and what if that? And like, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, cross the bridge when we get there. But
yeah,
I know, right? So I wanted to close thing out here. This is something I'm trying to do. I actually stole this from another show, but I don't know on the notes. Like, I always ask people what their most controversial opinion or their most unpopular opinion is. So what you got? Like, do you have like one ready to go? I usually give mine first, but I think I already did with the autism thing. That's kind of so funny because I'm literally afraid to say it out loud.
Yeah, I think that there needs to be more nuance to that. And like, like you said, maybe there is. But the only thing I can really think of is that steak is fucking disgusting.
Oh my God, we got a blazing hot take here. I've never heard this from anybody. Wow,
it's
all right.
Gross. Like, I've tried because everybody around me likes fucking steak. They love it. And like, I've tried steak in every which way possible. And every which way I've had it is so gross. Like, I don't want a mouthful of blood. I don't want like rubber bouncy, like what the fuck else? Like, and then when it was really cooked, it's like really like you can't even fucking bite into it. Like, steak pisses me off, to be honest. And like, I don't understand people's love for steak. It's weird to me, and I've tried.
This is the world's most confusing conspiracy theory where we've all banded together just to gaslight you into thinking that we think steak is delicious. We're spending like thousands of dollars a year trying to
get mad too. Like, I'm like,
yeah,
steak is gross. They're like, what? Have you had it this way? Have you had it the way I make it? I'm like, yes, I assure you, I have tried it the way you fucking made it. And I know, right? I cannot eat it.
I hate when they say this like you're an 8-year-old. Like, okay, I've been around a while. Okay, I've gotten a chance to see and try it. Oh, does it smell good to you?
No, not really.
Okay, all right, yeah. So, okay, well, yeah, that tracks. Because sometimes, like for example, coffee smells amazing. I hate coffee, but I love how it smells. You know, so
because I fucking cream and sugar that shit until I can taste it. But like, I like the smell. I agree. I like the smell, and the
smells great.
But I'm addicted, so I just need it.
So I'm gonna add on to your unpopular opinion here. I do like steak. So I have like 1.5 unpopular opinions. With the steak thing, most steak tastes pretty much the same to me. Really? Like, I do like it. Like I started, so I would eat pretty much any steak, and I didn't notice a huge difference. But my ex-girlfriend, she loved ribeyes, and so we ate ribeyes all the time. And then I tried like a New York strip. I was like, oh, this is fucking gross. I know a ribeye. So I kind of got accustomed to the ribeye. However, I will say that I don't taste a major difference between like decent steak you buy at a grocery store and like high-end steak or whatever. Or like you go to a really nice restaurant and you pay $80 for a steak, like a dry aged steak, it's the same thing. I can't taste the difference at all. And that's a weird first world problem thing right there. That was kind of odd. I feel weird saying that. This was going to sound just as bad, honestly. But you don't like steak. I don't like lobster. I don't like it at all. Oh my God. Look, so the tables have turned here.
I haven't had lobster too many times, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
It's similar to crab because I fucking love crab.
It's fairly similar. I think I don't like either.
Like lobster. I think maybe I've had it like once and kind of forgot kind of thing.
I had lobster for the first time probably in my 20s, probably my early mid 20s, and I couldn't wait because it looks great. You know, I mean, the animal looks really gross. It's like a giant bug, you know, but it looks great. And so I remember I took a bite of it. I was like, no, it did kind of. No, I don't like crab either. No, I don't like crab either. Crab cakes are delicious.
Because I fucking crab is my
crab is your on it. But usually when I tell people I don't like lobster, they respond with, well, did you try it with butter sauce? And yes, I did try the butter sauce. Delicious. It was great. However, if you dip anything in the butter, it's going to be delicious. So I'm sorry, that means I like butter. It doesn't mean I like lobster. So yeah, like a good steak, you don't have to add anything to. So if I need to put like, what's it called, bechamel?
I disagree about steak because like,
well, you know, if you like steak,
A1 that shit. It's disgusting.
Oh really? Okay, wow. All right. So you don't like A1 taste A? Well, I guess the steak sauce.
I don't like it.
Yeah, but.
Like what else do you put on steak to make it edible?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, there's you can like the best thing to put on steak is after you're done making the steak, you can add some like butter, and some people like white wine or red wine in it, and then you kind of mix it to like this sauce from the steak itself. But that's just gonna be more steak flavor, so you wouldn't like that either. But yeah, that's the first one that I don't like steak, but that's how the lobster one too. So that's good times. Like we're simpatico with the surf and turf. We can just swap. We can agree to disagree. We'd be good.
I love crab, so.
Yeah, this is good times. Well, all right. So thank you for joining us so much, Gigi. Could you tell everyone where they could find your stuff?
Yep, all of my platforms. Let's see, I'm on Instagram. I do Threads a lot lately, kind of like the Zuckerberg Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just Gigi Slaps, GIGISLAPS. All my platforms, you can just find me there. Snapchat, Instagram, and Threads is usually where I'm posting. So
fantastic. Before I go, Wolfie wanted to say hello. He was up here whining. So
Wolfie.
Yeah,
he's so Wolfie through all your videos, and I'm like, I feel like
it's so funny. Wolfie has become a like celebrity in his own right. Like people ask about him, and one day I did a video about and someone asked, "Oh, is this a cat reveal?" And I held it up there, and then someone commented like, "This is Wolfie's dad reveal." Actually, if you ask, we're concerned. Wolfie's the main star of the show, so yeah, he's a good kitty. But all right, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you guys later. All right, so we're off here. Thanks so much for coming on. That was